Everyone, welcome to another brand new episode of Women of Community Banking podcast. Today we've got Alisa with us. Hi, Alisa, how are you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
Alisa, I'm doing great. Firstly, thank you for agreeing to come to the podcast. I know you're crazy, crazy busy, but you taking your time out to do this, we are really elated to have you today.
I'm so excited to join. I think what you're doing and the women that you've showcased is just absolutely amazing.
Absolutely pleasure, Alisa, because of women leaders like you, because of leaders like you, we've been able to do this multiple times, and now this has become a habit, right? It's just amazing. Quick introduction who Alisa is. I don't think she needs an introduction. She is in the ecosystem for almost more than 2 decades. Alisa is the COO of Amerisview Credit Union, an amazing forward-thinking digital credit union. It's amazing. She almost runs the entire credit union, for the lack of better words, right? So we were just having a chat on what are the few things that she does. Alisa is responsible for lending, marketing, retail, IT. Alisa, did
Yeah.
I miss anything?
No, insurance, investment.
Insurance.
Ultimately, I always say, I run the day to day of the organization, and the three direct reports I don't have is finance, HR, and risk management. Those are the three areas that I'm not currently overseeing. Correct.
Sounds good, Lisa. So I hope I was able to do half justice to your introduction. Unless you want to add something, please feel free.
That sounds good. You did
Sounds
amazing.
perfect.
So
I hope so. I hope so. So, Lisa, this long career, right? I mean, you've worked with multiple credit unions. You've also worked with banks earlier, right? Coming to credit unions, so very similar backgrounds. So, what keeps you going? Because you're almost running the entire day-to-day operations. It's a lot of work, right? So, what keeps you going?
yeah, it's the impact we have to our communities, right? I've always been someone that deeply cares about people and cares about watching them grow and learn and prosper. Ultimately, I started my career as a teller. I was going to school at night. And I eventually just throughout my career progressed through different roles, and I ended up managing retail banking, but then I found lending and I fell in love with lending because it was one of those things that gives back to you to watch someone achieve their dream. Like ultimately it was the best feeling, and I pride myself on helping people, gain wealth, educate financial literacy. And so in the banking space, I started to get to the point where I felt like it was all driven by just revenue, and it didn't matter about anything else. Like the customer stopped mattering to them. And so I eventually thought to myself, well, this isn't kind of a business I want to be in anymore. And I had a friend that was like, you need to try a credit union. And I was like, oh, I was like, ultimately all I knew about credit unions at that time was that you had to, it was closed membership and you had to be a part of some big corporation or organization to be part of it. So I went on an interview, and I can't tell you, immediately I felt the connection between what my core beliefs were as an individual and what credit unions, people helping people philosophy was about. So,
Yes. Yes.
over 20 years ago, I made the switch from banking, and a lot of people don't understand the difference between a bank and a credit union. And if you work in it, you clearly will. If you're a member of it, you know pretty immediately what that difference is. So I've converted to credit unions, and it's been the best thing I've ever done, because I can tell you, I've never been asked working at a credit union, well, how much money does this person have to make an exception or make a decision about something. It's always been, the most I've ever been asked is how long have they been a member? And that's impactful to me, because I think it's important when you are a cooperative banking institution, you want to just make sure that you are providing the education and opportunity for those people.
I mean, that's the ethos of you working in a credit union, is going beyond balance sheet is what I think, right? And that's the reason because of which, Alisa, I left my job doing Fortune 500s and came to credit unions. That's a basic reason, right? And that absolutely makes sense. Alisa, do you want to talk about your journey? I mean, you've got a pretty long, eventful journey. You've changed so many roles, so many credit unions, so many banks, much more than me, right? So
Yeah.
let's talk about your journey.
Yeah, so I mean, it's been fun. I've actually pretty much worked in almost every division or department in financial services, because I'm an everyday learner. I love to learn. I'm inquisitive. I kind of ended up learning just enough to be dangerous and never an expert of anything, if it makes sense. But like I said, I started as a teller. I just essentially I was a branch manager by the time I was 18, or I was like 18 and a half. So it was a very quick progression for me, and also very challenging at such a young age to have no leadership experience. But I moved from a teller to a head teller to assistant manager to a manager really rapidly, like within a 12-month period. And I was, going to school, and I had the opportunities face me because I always approached it as, learn the next job. Once you've learned your job and you're doing really great as a teller, I learned what the head teller did, right? With no expectation. It was just, I wanted to learn. And I've done that throughout my whole career and progressed, and ultimately was able to, progress into every field I wanted to do. So, once I became a branch manager, I found out I was pretty good at lending. It was something I became passionate about. And so I started getting recruited for other banks to ultimately be able to go and be a mortgage loan officer. That's how I started over on the lending side full time. And then, I ultimately was recruited into the credit union, as I kind of spoke of earlier, and they wanted to start up a secondary market mortgage department. And that's what I did. I went in, it was a brand new to them. They were, they're just dipping in. They had done some portfolio lending before. And I had the opportunity to grow that team. And it was a lot of fun because it was a smaller credit union at the time. And we ended up growing to being the number 2 mortgage lender in the entire market. And, we were small, and we were doing over $200 million in mortgages and selling them. And it was just the revenue that helped propel that credit union to grow. So that was really exciting. And then I progressed through there. I made it to become a CLO, a chief lending officer. And then my last role there was a chief growth officer. And that really gave me opportunity to oversee anything that generated revenue. So it was an awesome opportunity. But then I was, started to think about, what do I want to do next in my career? And it was ultimately I would like to become a CEO, and I wanted to make sure that I was well-rounded enough. And I realized, looking at my resume, working with some recruiters and some coaches, that I really didn't have executive experience over retail. I had worked in retail.
Yeah.
So I had a great opportunity to go and work for AmeriQ Credit Union. And they were looking for a chief experience officer. They had just promoted within to a brand new CEO. And I knew him as a peer. We were really close and friendly, and we talked, and I ultimately went over there, and I was running their retail network as an executive in marketing when I first started. I've been there now almost 5 years. My role there has progressed, as we talked about in the beginning, and so now I'm the executive vice president and chief operating officer over the credit union, and I couldn't be happier with what I've learned and experienced. Because ultimately, you think you know everything. You've been in banking for 25 plus years. You think you've seen everything, but I really learned quickly that every organization is very distinctively different. And I've had the opportunity over my career to, like I said, build departments from the ground up, but also do complete transformations, whether that's from technology perspective, people perspective, and a completely new strategy. I've done mergers, I've done expansions into new markets with no brick or mortar or experience in them. So it's been just a really fun ride and a lot of opportunity to learn and grow as an individual, having all those experiences.
Interesting. So that's your journey. Now let me ask you about what you do right now. We know that, but my question is, why do you do what you do?
I ultimately want to make sure that that my community is continuing their financial literacy and education. So it's really important to me, even when I look at our expanding into new markets, the banking deserts, the opportunities aren't there for every community we serve. And I think that's where credit unions can fulfill that, right? So you're seeing a lot of the banks, the large banks, just go completely digital and move out of some areas and not provide. There's a missing component still. What credit unions were created for, it's still a problem today.
Yeah.
And I'm really passionate about making sure we're there for the communities that need support. They need it more now than ever. I mean, financially, people are struggling. to make ends meet. And I feel like our purpose as credit union is to be in those communities, educating, serving, and thinking outside the box on how to help them. And that's ultimately why we are expanding in a lot of rural areas. We've done a lot of research in them and making sure that there's appropriate banking services in them. We've done a lot of product development to help with that. So that's why I do what I do. I want to make sure that people are prospering and growing and being able to, ultimately, our mission is to become the most admired organizations in the community we serve. That means something to me because it's not just bank; it's company. I want everyone to look at AmeriQ and everyone who works there and really, see us as someone that's there and as a partner of theirs.
Yeah, I mean, for a reason. I mean, you're doing it for a specific reason, right? Absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
I'm passionate about it. Like what we do matters. I think out of a lot of professions out there, like we really can change someone's life. And I think we far too often are moving so fast that we forget that a lot of times. And I have to remind myself that some days where you're just grinding and you're going through and you have, regulatory pressure and you have, earnings pressure a little bit to make sure that you're profitable. And, I think there's time we need to take some time and space to remember what we do matters and celebrate those wins when you have them. And I think as even an industry, we're just not doing that great of a job of that, is bringing it back to the why. So I think that that's something like even I tell myself multiple times is like focus on all the good that we're doing to ease the stress that we live in.
right. So obviously, throughout the phase of 20 plus years, I'm sure you might have had a lot of challenges, right? So do you want to talk about some high and low points in your career that molded you to become the person you are today?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest challenges I think we all face, especially in credit unions, is growing and making sure that you're meeting your talent where they're at, like talent, having the right people in the right seats to drive your strategy and being able to make sure that you are developing your talent. It's been a challenge, I think, at multiple organizations I've been at. And because you when you grow so rapidly, you're just firing. Sometimes you're firing human capital at issues and not necessarily, or you bring in a new technology and you don't have the talent to derive that technology through the organization as it to be most successful with it. So I've always felt one of the biggest challenges. I'm someone who loves growth, and every opportunity I've had in my career has been about growth, if it makes sense. But I do find myself, one of the biggest challenges over my career is making sure that we're prioritizing, coaching and development of our people, because that's who drives everything we do, our strategy, our deals with our membership, our interactions. And I think most times, if you're not focused on coaching and development, everything you've been doing can fail pretty quickly because you haven't put in the prioritization of that. You're just rapid fire growth, technology, grow into this market. And then when you end up looking at your staffing structure or your staffing abilities, you have holes and gaps, right? So I think if I really look back and looked at the biggest challenge we have, or I have faced over it, is making sure that through your growth, you're continuously bringing your talent with you and meeting them where they're at to sustain the growth in all transparency and like promote. I mean, how many times, I'm sure like it will resonate with a lot of different people. Yes. You bring out all these new challenges. You have all this technology. You've invested millions of dollars in some of the best state-of-the-art technologies. I've done it over and over. And then I always use analogy like you're using, you buy a Cadillac and you don't even know how to drive it yet. And that's kind of what we end up doing. We start using pieces of these technology and we don't fully implement or use them to their fullest capacity. So I do think we need to pause and make sure that coaching and development is a priority first and foremost. As you move through growth and technology transitions.
Interesting. Right? Alisa, me being a data geek, I almost ask this question to everyone I meet. You guys might hate it, but still, I strongly believe, and we were having a roundtable yesterday with like 6 CMOs, and I posed this question that I believe the first evolution was internet, the second evolution is AI, but still there are 200 vendors around that bring the AI wrapper, right? That everything can be solved by AI. That's not the thing, right? You need proper data for decisioning. It's a 2 year, 3 year long journey, right? So how is AmeriCU using data? I hate to use the word AI. Use data for better decisioning across the member life cycle.
Yeah, it is imperative, right? Like we actually are noticing that in strategy, we're finding some of our failures is because exactly that where we didn't use enough data. We've had a tremendous membership growth, especially this year. We're almost at our annual goal before we even hit halfway through. But because we haven't used data, what we started to you start seeing some cracks that you worry about for longer down the road. For example, we started looking at inactivity, right? We're so excited over here. We're growing. We have all these new members. And then all of a sudden, whoop, what are all these inactive members that haven't been transacting at all in their accounts in the past, 6 to 12 months? It was staggering numbers. It was like 10,000 members hadn't used their debit cards or any account transactions in over 180 days.
I'm sure.
If I didn't have data to tell me that, what do you think is going to happen? Attrition. It's going to just turn and burn these members, right? So as an organization, we have so much data. I think that's also where credit unions really need to sink in better, to use data to make decisions, but also use data to track and monitor their growth, because you can grow like crazy and then and think you're just the most amazing organization. And then guess what? That starts creeping up on you in 5 years and you're not prepared for it. So now I feel really confident by using data. That's just a small example of how you want to make sure that you are dialed in to your data to stop any potential future problems. And I think that that's also in any of your market research for growth. You need to know if you're going into a new market, you need to know what is that community, who are your competitors. It goes into that. We use data for all of those types of things. Product development, we use it for that. It's just so imperative. We literally we're starting to dabble into some AI for marketing, right? We've done our best to build out very manual journeys for members and personalization. And now we're really becoming a little bit more sophisticated. We're a Salesforce shop, so we use Salesforce. They have a lot of tools to help you, AI tools that help you really do better data mining and machine learning on your members. So that's the journey we're going down next and into next year, so we can become I call it hyper specialized for the consumer. Unlike, I would say, now we've dabbled in it and we've done it from more of a lower level perspective. So that's really exciting to me, because I do think that part of our role is, like, I say this all the time, like, people don't know what they don't know. They don't live in our business and they don't even understand what's available to them. So if we know their behaviors, we know where they're spending, we know what they're doing. We're sitting on data that companies pay millions of dollars for, and we have it for free. We really should start using it, and not in a creepy way. I know sometimes I talk to my peers and they're all worried about, well, what is the member going to think we're spying on them? No, if you approach it in the right way and it's supporting and educating them, it's not, they won't perceive it as bad. You can specialize your offers to them, right? Because if I'm somebody who, maybe I'm a consumer who never expects to have children, why do I want to hear about student loans into my later years, right? So it's just that it's making sure that you have the data that you're learning about the member, you're presenting them with appropriate marketing consumption ideas.
Understand. So that's pretty good. In the interest of time, I want to ask you two broad questions. One is, Alisa, what's new? What's new that you're doing right now that keeps you excited?
Yeah, I think for us, we're really excited about the opportunity. We're doing a merger right now, which is really exciting for the opportunity to bring another credit union into the AmeriCU family. And we do look at that. It's actually one of our new growth markets. So the impact that we'll have on that community from a technology perspective, we're really excited, as I stated, about using our tools more effectively and efficiently. We are looking at some additional automated underwriting tools that are already out in the market, but it would be new to AmeriQ to help expand our offerings to our members. So really, really excited for that. And we're just constantly looking at new opportunities and needs of the membership. We just came out this year with new rewards checking and high rate checking for our consumer, and we just launched it for business. So we're really excited to help small businesses. It's a big push of ours because we realize today with the economic environment that's out there that they have these needs that we hope to fill that gap. We call them express. We have some express loans for them. So we're just constantly assessing our market space and looking at better ways that we can support. So I would say to you, we're excited about product development. We're kind of in that mode where we spent a lot of the last 5 years upgrading our technologies and providing infrastructure, and now we can actually do what I would call the fun stuff, which is the not so grind on providing infrastructure to the organization, but actually providing our members with additional services that they need. And so that's exciting to me going forward. And that's the growth fun stuff we get to do.
That's interesting, right? One last question, Lisa, is obviously the market is bit volatile, right? I mean, it's not the way how we expected. Things are going up and down. What are your 2 cents on 2025? How do you think this year will span out?
I honestly believe this is the best time to work and promote credit unions. Now, it is a challenging regulatory environment for us. I do think we need to be worried about our taxation status. I'm not naive to that whatsoever. But from a consumer space perspective and what we can provide to the community and what we can offer members to help them through this is exactly where I believe the philosophy of where credit unions were created, that we should see tremendous growth through this and support. I believe strongly that we should help people get past these economic challenges, the higher cost of living. We can provide, a lot of opportunities, whether that be consolidations, home equities. I feel strongly about not being prudent in your lending, but also continuing to think outside of that box to help them. Because there's lots of things, like we have financial counselors at AmeriQ, and we're really promoting them. And we really want our teammates to work with members to find, alternatives to get them through. And it's also educating them to think differently. If they're a small business owner, maybe they need to look at different revenue streams because society is changing so much, and look at what's happening in the tariffs. And is there a space that your business can kind of pivot to? We have small business lenders and commercial lenders that we are having those conversations. Yeah. Honestly, we're just coming at it as we are consultative, and this is our opportunity to grow and help our members continue to grow through challenging times. So we believe we're exceeding goals right now, and every one, whether it's share growth, loan growth, member growth, we do see obviously challenges amongst the collection side of the house. But what we've found is if we can actually get a hold of the members, we have an option for them for an alternative workout, right? There's in no way, shape, or form do any of us want to take someone's car or house. And if they actually call us and talk to us, we're able to help them. And we're finding, we are seeing a lot more workouts, and that's working in our favor and the members' favor to educate them to get them through. But I just think my perspective and outlook on it is that this is where we should shine as a credit union industry, and this is where we can help our members and our communities more than we ever have in the past. So that's my view on it. I don't I'm not a half glass, I'm a full glass kind of girl. I want to go forward. Just make sure that we're doing everything possibly we can to help our communities through this, that if anyone's challenged or our investment team has been proactively outbound calling people who are seeing the huge swings in their portfolios. And, we made a conscious decision to try to start targeting people who are looking for retirement because of the most effective, maybe that we're in the market still. So we just, I think being proactive and really positioning yourself that we're here to help and support, we'll continue to see the growth in the industry.
That sounds amazing, Alisa. So actually, thank you for spending this 25 minutes with us. Again, I'm really sorry for being late
No,
to the show. Really sorry about that, but this was amazing. You shared golden nuggets of your experience, of your priorities. This was amazing. Again, thank you, Alisa. I really appreciate it.
thank you so much. We appreciate you.
Thank you, Alisa.